In the days and weeks following Brazil's 2022 presidential election, a sense of unease swept across the nation. Why did 80% of Brazilians say they feared for democracy after the 2022 election? The answer is rooted in a complex web of political tension, misinformation, and a dramatic struggle for power that would ultimately shake the very foundations of Brazil's democratic institutions. The story of Jair Bolsonaro's downfall is not just about one man, but about a nation grappling with its identity, its future, and the resilience of its democracy in the face of unprecedented challenges. At the center of this storm stands former President Jair Bolsonaro, a figure who once commanded the loyalty of millions, but who now finds himself at the heart of one of the most consequential trials in Brazilian history. On September 11, 2025, the Supreme Court handed down a sentence that would reverberate across the country and the world: 27 years in prison for orchestrating a failed coup. This verdict was not just a personal reckoning for Bolsonaro, but a defining moment for Brazil's democracy. Jair Bolsonaro, once Brazil's most powerful leader, now faces a future behind bars. The image of a former president in handcuffs, escorted by police, is a stark symbol of the nation's resolve to hold even its most influential figures accountable. For many Brazilians, this moment is both shocking and cathartic, a sign that the rule of law can prevail, even in the face of immense political pressure. The trial itself was a spectacle unlike any other in Brazil's modern history. For months, the eyes of the nation were fixed on the Supreme Court in Brasilia, where justices weighed evidence, heard testimony, and debated the fate of a man who had once been entrusted with the highest office in the land. The proceedings were broadcast live, drawing millions of viewers and sparking heated debates in homes, workplaces, and public squares across the country. On September 11, 2025, the court delivered its verdict: guilty on multiple counts, including orchestrating a plot to overturn the 2022 election and attempting to subvert the democratic process. But how did Brazil reach this extraordinary point? The seeds of the coup attempt were sown years earlier, in 2021, when Bolsonaro and his allies began a relentless campaign to undermine public trust in Brazil's electronic voting system. Through speeches, interviews, and a barrage of social media posts, they spread disinformation and conspiracy theories, claiming, without evidence, that the system was vulnerable to fraud. This campaign of doubt was not just about the mechanics of voting. It was an attack on the very legitimacy of Brazil's democratic institutions. As the 2022 election approached, tensions reached a fever pitch. Bolsonaro, facing a tough challenge from Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva, doubled down on his rhetoric, warning of a stolen election and hinting at the possibility of military intervention. When the results came in and Lula was declared the winner, Bolsonaro refused to concede. Instead, he allegedly sought to convince military leaders to intervene, to overturn the will of the people, and to keep him in power by force if necessary. These efforts, though ultimately unsuccessful, exposed deep divisions within Brazil's political and military establishment. The situation escalated rapidly. According to court documents and investigative reports, the plot to overturn the election included not only attempts to pressure military leaders, but also an aborted assassination plot targeting key political figures. The most dramatic moment came on January 8, 2023, when thousands of Bolsonaro supporters stormed government buildings in Brasilia, smashing windows, ransacking offices, and clashing with police. The scenes were chaotic and violent, reminiscent of other attacks on democratic institutions around the world. For many Brazilians, the events of that day were a wake-up call, a stark reminder of how fragile democracy can be in the face of coordinated disinformation and political extremism. In the aftermath of the January 8th attack, the Brazilian justice system moved swiftly. Investigators uncovered a trove of evidence linking Bolsonaro and his inner circle to the planning and execution of the coup attempt. The Supreme Court convened a special panel of 5 justices to hear the case, and over the course of several months they reviewed thousands of pages of documents, heard testimony from dozens of witnesses, and examined the role of social media in spreading falsehoods and inciting violence. The verdict was clear. Bolsonaro was found guilty on charges including attempting to abolish democracy, leading an armed criminal group, and inciting insurrection. The decision was not unanimous, but it was decisive. 4 out of 5 justices voted to convict, describing Bolsonaro as the leader of a sophisticated criminal structure designed to subvert the democratic process. In their statements, the justices emphasized the gravity of the charges and the importance of upholding the rule of law, even when it meant holding a former president accountable. The lone dissenting justice argued for a lesser sentence, but the majority prevailed, sending a powerful message about the strength and independence of Brazil's judiciary. The verdict has divided Brazil, exposing deep rifts in the nation's political and social fabric. In cities across the country, Bolsonaro's supporters took to the streets, waving flags, chanting slogans, and denouncing the trial as a political witch hunt. Some called for amnesty, while others vowed to continue the fight for what they saw as a stolen election. At the same time, supporters of Lula and defenders of democracy celebrated the verdict, seeing it as a victory for justice and a reaffirmation of Brazil's commitment to the rule of law. The scenes of protest and celebration played out side by side, a vivid illustration of the challenges facing a nation still grappling with the legacy of political polarization. Despite his conviction and lengthy prison sentence, Jair Bolsonaro's political influence has not disappeared. His allies remain active, organizing rallies, speaking to the press, and preparing for the next round of elections. Some have called for sweeping amnesty measures, arguing that the trial was politically motivated and that reconciliation is needed to heal the nation's wounds. Others are already positioning themselves as Bolsonaro's political heirs, hoping to capitalize on his enduring popularity among a significant segment of the population. The battle for Brazil's future is far from over, and the outcome of the next elections will be closely watched both at home and abroad. The trial of Jair Bolsonaro is unprecedented in Brazilian history, a moment that will be studied and debated for years to come. It marks a critical test for the country's democracy, challenging its institutions to respond to threats from within and to reaffirm the principles of accountability, transparency, and the rule of law. For the international community, the trial sends a powerful message that no one, not even a former president, is above the law. As Brazil moves forward, the world will be watching to see whether its democracy can emerge stronger from this crisis, or whether the divisions exposed by the trial will continue to shape its future. In the end, the fate of Jair Bolsonaro is inseparable from the fate of Brazilian democracy itself, a story of struggle, resilience, and the ongoing quest to build a more just and inclusive society.